don't want to hurt you, but one way or another, you're coming with me.
Here.
Well, I can change that in a hurry.
I'm gonna set you straight, man. You got it all wrong. This is no game. Now, I want the truth, the whole truth. So help you God.
10 of the toughest actors in Hollywood history. Not the press release version, the real thing. Men who bled in war, slept rough, boxed for rent, and then showed up on set the next morning to do it again. They didn't just play heroes, they'd already lived the third act. One of them was so accomplished in combat that a studio literally cut his true story from the script because, quote, no one would believe it. Before we roll, tell me where you're watching from. I read every comment and love seeing this community span the globe. All right, time to separate movie tough from tough tough. 1. Audie Murphy. On screen, he looked gentle, boyish even. In real life, Audie Murphy was the most decorated American combat soldier of World War II. 19 years old when he climbed onto a burning tank destroyer in France, held off a German company alone for nearly an hour, then led a counterattack while wounded. Medal of Honor, every major U.S. Valor Award, decorations from France and Belgium. Hollywood didn't know what to do with that face. Guards at his first screen test wouldn't even let him in. He looked too young to be the war hero on the call sheet. Yet the quiet was the point. Friends said his calm wasn't shyness. It was control. He slept with a pistol under the pillow, wrestled nightmares in the dark, and avoided tough guy posturing because he didn't need it. When he played himself into hell and back, producers removed true events because they sounded like propaganda. Imagine being so brave the studio has to tone you down. 2. Charles Bronson. Before Bronson became a brand, the man was Charles Bukinski, one of 15 kids in a Pennsylvania coal town, working the mines at 10. That hard labor carved his look. The squint, the granite jaw, the body built by shovels, not kettlebells. He flew 25 combat missions as a B-29 gunner and came home with a Purple Heart. Calm under fire, teammates said, the guy you wanted in the turret when tracers stitched the night. In Hollywood, he hauled that life with him. He moved like someone who'd fought for real. Short punches, no wasted motion, pain handled in silence. Co-stars talked about the grip. He'd grab your shirt for a mark and you felt power. When mob threats popped after Death Wish, he waved off bodyguards. I've lived too long to worry about people like that, he said. That wasn't bravado. It was a man who knew exactly what he'd already survived. 3. Lee Marvin. Lee Marvin didn't pretend to understand violence. He remembered it. A Marine in the Pacific, he was machine-gunned on Saipan and carried a permanent limp he hid on camera. He hated war stories that glamorized combat. Any man who says he enjoyed it is a liar or a fool, he said. Directors loved him because he brought the truth. Violence is fast, ugly, and over. Sets got quieter when he walked on. Crew felt the charge, like a bar where something might happen. During a notorious dust-up in Oregon, he fought off a crew of lumberjacks, showed up the next day bruised and on time, refused medical delays. He could discuss Hemingway over coffee and then demonstrate the quickest way to put a man on the ground. That duality, brains and danger, made the threat on screen feel real. When Lee Marvin promised trouble, audiences believed him. 4. Steve McQueen. King of cool. Sure, but the crown was earned the hard way. An abused kid who ran at 14, a Marine who kept getting busted and still saved 5 men during an Arctic training accident, McQueen lived like a man who didn't expect tomorrow to show up on schedule. Racing wasn't a hobby, it was oxygen. He finished 2nd overall at Sebring, with a cast on his foot. On films he did stunts the studio begged him not to do, river sequences that nearly drowned him on the sand pebbles, fire gags on the towering inferno seasoned stuntmen called a hard no. During the Great Escape, he rode every motorcycle shot the insurers would allow. When police told him the Manson family had him on a list, he didn't build a security team. He holstered a Magnum and kept moving. The cool came from competence. He knew what to do if things went sideways. 5. Kirk Douglas. Kirk Douglas, born Ishur Danielevich, grew up so poor his first sales job was hawking snacks to mill workers for pennies. He fought his way into college on a wrestling scholarship, then served on a Navy submarine chaser hunting U-boats. Tight quarters, long hours, sudden fear. His willpower was the legend. On Spartacus, he trained like a gladiator, performing falls and fights the stunt team warned against. Later, a helicopter crash broke his back. A stroke stole his speech. Both times he clawed his way forward, relearning, rebuilding, returning to public life with a stubborn light in his eyes. Directors called him a force of nature. Co-star Burt Lancaster said Douglas didn't just play scenes, he attacked them. There's tough, and there's the kind of toughness that doesn't negotiate with pain. Douglas had the second kind. 6. James Cagney. 5'5" doesn't usually headline toughest, but Cagney grew up where height didn't matter and speed did, the Lower East Side, where your options were fists or footprints. He boxed for survival and danced for joy. Both disciplines show up in every fight he ever filmed. Fast feet, tight hands, no telegraph. Directors swore he threw the most believable punches in the business because he'd thrown them for real. The famous grapefruit scene in The Public Enemy? Not a special effect. He committed, and the shock you see is genuine. Offset, comics joked that if you crossed Jimmy, he'd drop you and then politely help you to your feet. He never bragged, he just knew how to handle himself. When you grow up where he did, you either learn to stand or you learn the floor. Cagney preferred standing. 7. John Wayne. Before the swagger, there was sweat. Marion Morrison, Duke, was a USC lineman who lugged scenery as a studio prop man before he lugged westerns on his back. 6'4", built like a barn, he performed his own rough stuff far longer than the insurance forms recommended. On the Alamo, he cracked ribs in a horse fall, taped himself up, and finished the day, also directing. Crews saw him grind through desert chutes that dropped otherwise tough men. The radiation-tainted set of The Conqueror is a tragic asterisk. Scores of cast and crew later developed cancer, Wayne among them. But it also speaks to a time when he took on punishing conditions and kept working. After a lung and ribs were removed in 1964, he came back months later doing saddle work in The Sons of Katie Elder. Agree with him or not, even his critics conceded the man's pain threshold was off the chart. Wayne's toughness wasn't a costume, it was a workload. 8. Robert Mitchum. Robert Mitchum was the rare star who didn't need to project danger. It seeped out of him without trying. Orphaned young, he rode the rails, boxed for money, swung picks in mines, and did a stint on a chain gang as a teen. Experiences that sanded him down to a smooth, world-weary calm. He talked about acting like it was a simple job. 2 styles, with and without a horse. Because after real stakes, hitting marks felt easy. Directors felt the physical power behind the shrug. On Night of the Hunter, he carried Shelley Winters through take after take like she weighed nothing. When he got popped for marijuana in 1948, a career killer for most, he did his 60 days and walked out cooler than he went in. Mitchum never tried to convince you he was tough. He just seemed like a man who already knew how bad a day could get and had the tools to handle it. 9. Anthony Quinn. Born in revolution-torn Mexico, raised in the poorest corners of Los Angeles, Anthony Quinn built his body the old-fashioned way, lifting what needed lifting. He boxed for cash, carved muscle on construction sites, and showed up in Hollywood with workman's hands and a poet's brain. On set, the strength was practical, not performative. In Zorba, the Greek he hauls timbers the crew assumed would be faked. In the Guns of Navarone, he climbs cliffs at an age when most stars swap to doubles. Directors said he didn't play laborers and fighters, he remembered them. And unlike many macho icons, Quinn wasn't afraid of tears, vulnerability, or art. Co-stars loved that about him. Warrior's body, artist's heart. Toughness without insecurity, that's a rare alloy. 10. Charlton Heston. Heston's resume reads like a dare. Army Air Force's aerial gunner in World War II. Then he starts stacking epics that punish the body. Sinai Heat on the 10 Commandments, months learning chariot driving for Ben-Hur. And yes, he did the bulk of that race himself, including a jump that almost tossed him under the team. Playing Michelangelo in the agony and the ecstasy, he held his arms up for hours to mimic fresco work until doctors worried about nerve damage. He refused extra padding because the discomfort helped the performance. Offset, he showed the other kind of courage, the willingness to stand where criticism is guaranteed. Agree or disagree with his politics. It takes grit to march with Dr. King in the 60s and later take positions that made him a lightning rod. Directors said he radiated heroic energy because he actually lived that way. Disciplined, prepared, unafraid to pay the price for conviction. So that's our 10. Different eras, different temperaments, one thread, authenticity. Not gym-built bravado or clever editing, but lives that forge the faces we still watch. Murphy's battlefield silence, Bronson's miner's stare, Marvin's hard truth, McQueen's throttle hand, Douglas's refuse to quit spine, Cagney's fast fists, Wayne's durability, Mitchum's unbothered steel, Quinn's laborer's strength, Heston's disciplined will. Who impressed you most, and who did we miss? Drop your pick in the comments. If you're into the real stories behind classic Hollywood, hit subscribe. More deep dives are on the way. And if you watch to the end, type "no stunt double," so I know you're one of the tough ones.